Well, the upcoming midterm elections for U.S. Congress will be the first nationwide vote since the attack of the U.S. Capitol nearly 2 years ago. There's a fight for control of Congress. While U.S. senators are on recess, we welcome Senator Alex Padilla to talk about election security and expanding financial access. Senator, good morning. But let's start with the FIRE Act. The FIRE Act would ultimately strengthen FEMA, we know. How specifically will it impact people here in California?
Sure. Well, first of all, good to see you again, Brandy. We were last together in my office in Washington a few months back. And congratulations, by the way, first week of this 9 a.m. broadcast. So happy to be one of the first participants here in week one. You know, the FIRE Act, and it can't be more timely, is really built on the premise that while FEMA has gotten good over the years at anticipating, preparing for, and responding to other types of disasters, floods, hurricanes, and even earthquakes, California's earthquake country, we can't say the same when it comes to wildfires. But we know that wildfires are increasing in frequency and severity, not just in California, it's throughout the West, but especially in California. So trying to update FEMA's processes, criteria, protocol to do things like pre-positioning of assets. It means getting firefighters and fire equipment and aircraft in position when we know the risk is high. We have the drought conditions. When it's hot and windy, it's a bad recipe for fire. So let's anticipate better and be ready in the event of a major fire. Those are some of the things on the front end. On the back end, being more accommodating and helpful as communities try to recover. You know, one of the classic examples is, well, you can't rebuild a fire station in a fire-prone area, but what happens if a city that's been burned down is entirely in a fire zone because of the drought, because of the heat? So we have to be a little bit more accommodating to the uniqueness of wildfires as it compares to other disasters.
And we know that that bill has already passed the Senate, so now it goes to the House for consideration. You also recently introduced the Expanding Financial Access for Underserved Communities Act. How will that impact California?
Yeah, so this is an issue I've been working on for many, many years. I remember 20 years ago as a member of the city council in Los Angeles trying to nudge financial institutions to have more of a presence in underserved and low-income areas. In to mixed success. Well, now as a senator, I can do things like allow credit unions to expand their field of membership to serve the areas where a lot of the other financial institutions have either never been in physically, have not had that presence, or have retreated from. In the last several years, we've seen a reduction in the number of bank branches and things of that nature for people to access. And we know how important that is, not just where to bank, where to deposit, but trying to obtain a home loan or an auto loan, those sorts of things. So it's really, again, that equity lens, trying to bring financial resources and financial literacy and support to the communities that have been without for far too long.
Yeah, Senator Padilla, we just did an interview recently about this study showing just the number of bank branches opening, far fewer or less opening in minority communities. We want to switch gears a bit here and talk about the election. How concerned are you about the concerns from a lot of people over election integrity as we head toward November?
So now you're appealing to not just me as a United States Senator, but my former role as California Secretary of State. The chatter about voter fraud is a myth. It's a pretext by the former president and a lot of his followers and enablers to undermine confidence in the electoral process. Look, California is a classic example. We have the most secure elections and the most accessible elections, multiple ways to be able to register to vote, stay registered to vote, cast your ballot. There's post-election audits, ballot tracking, all these mechanisms to ensure that people have confidence that when they cast their vote is going to be counted, and we can have confidence in the results. And boy, as with every election, it's important, but this election in particular, first election post the deadly insurrection in our nation's capital. We see the issues that are on the line, from protecting a woman's right to choose. There's a proposition on the ballot here in California to enshrine it into our state constitution as a response to the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision just a couple months ago. But whether you care about choice, climate change, access to health care, immigration reform, so much more, the balance of Congress, who's in the majority matters. And you have no shortage of reasons to make sure you're registered and get out and vote this November.
Senator Padilla, one other thing that just came across our news desk this morning is that you joined a group of senators asking to extend the public service loan forgiveness waiver deadline. You know, a lot of folks are keeping a very close eye on what's happening in Washington related to the potential for student loan forgiveness. What do you say to people who say there's been enough time for folks to fill out those waivers and to, follow that process to get that forgiveness ultimately?
Yeah, it's the very premise for the extensions and the deferrals has been the COVID pandemic. And we're in a much better place today than we were in the early days of the pandemic, or even a year ago. There's still a lot of uncertainty out there. We hope there's not another wave coming this winter. We also know the economy, while unemployment is at a record low, wages are high, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy. And I think there's still a lot of justification for extension of that relief. And even with the initial action by President Biden, the first $20,000 of student debt relief, that's a lot of young professionals who can now go about starting their careers without the concern about student loans or even paying the mortgage.
Senator Padilla, we have about 30 seconds here. Where does that stand? I mean, there's been a lot of questions still about student loan forgiveness. We do know the president has made the announcement, but there is still, like the application hasn't been posted yet. It's not clear when that'll happen. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, my understanding is the application process and the website will be unveiled very, very soon. The first priority is to make it as automatic as possible.
Okay.
When you apply for federal student loans, that means the federal government has your name, your address, those sorts of things. If you file taxes, we obviously know how to return some money to you, either by check, by direct deposit, or otherwise. So we're going to try to make this as easy as possible for everybody who qualifies.
All right. Still a lot of questions. And of course, we'll be following up on that. Senator Padilla, always a pleasure to see you. We really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brandy. Have a great day.